Barbados installs its second female Governor General today. That's our top story in our Barbados Today morning news update for Monday, January the 8th. I'm Emmanuel Joseph. Thanks for joining us. Barbados will install its 8th Governor General this afternoon in a ceremony full of pomp and circumstance at the Senate Chambers of Parliament. Madam Justice Sandra Mason, the Governor General designate, will become Dame Sandra Mason. She replaces Sir Elliot Belgrave. The new head of state will perform her first official duty on Wednesday morning when she presents the insignia of the 2017 National Honors and Awards to recipients at Government House. Passengers on board a Jetblue flight which landed here from Boston yesterday afternoon are breathing a sigh of relief this morning after the plane experienced technical difficulties. The plane was forced to remain on the tarmac at the Grantley Adams International Airport for an additional 20 minutes while emergency personnel investigated a strange smell which the captain reported was coming from the cockpit. Passengers were eventually allowed to disembark the flight, but the delay had a ripple effect on other flights attempting to land. Shaquana Bridgman was one of those on board the Jetblue flight.
And our flight wasn't too bad once they, kept us, telling us what's going on or whatever.
Okay.
And we got, we landed and we were fine, so it was all good.
Okay, could you walk us through what happened really? You landed and then the captain said you smelled
they
something?
They said there was a smell. We stopped, so there was a smell.
Right.
And they had to get somebody to come and check it out. And then they came back and was like everything was fine, so we landed smoothly.
Another passenger, Aaron Hines, also told Barbados Today's Colville Moonsey he was relieved the plane had landed safely.
As we landed, I want to say about 5 minutes after the wheels were down, as soon as we were coming to park, our plane stopped and the pilot said that there was some smell, some odor going on the plane, but none of the passengers could smell it. Apparently it was only in the cockpit, and so we waited about 15-20 minutes until for that smell to get out of the plane or out of the cockpit, and then they let us off.
Okay. Was it worrying or scary in any way?
Not really. Just because we landed. As long as we landed, we got here safe. I wasn't really too worried about it. When they said they smelled something, everybody's ears kind of perked up to try to get attention of it, but everybody was real calm and collect.
Barbados Today understands that a British Airways flight had to circle the runway before it was eventually cleared to land. This also resulted in quite a backup of passengers at Customs and Immigration. Barbados Today also reached out to Jetblue, whose corporate communications office in New York promised to issue a statement on the matter at a later date. In other news now, Central Bank Governor Cleviston Hines wants greater support for local writers so their works could become commercially viable. Addressing the 20th Frank Cullimer Literary Endowment Awards at the Courtney Blackman Grand Sale over the weekend, Hines also recommended a twinning of writers and local film producers for profitable products.
The evolution of local literature is intrinsic to our national development and needs to be encouraged. While I think the bank is playing its part in this regard, we need other champions to support our poets, playwrights, and other writers. Champions who can recognize talent and, through assistance in publishing, expose indigenous superior penmanship to the Barbadian society. While many of our writers may be motivated simply by the joy of churning out good writing with interesting plots and themes, some of the graduates of this competition have gone further and have published their works. I firmly believe that this is important, as we need to find avenues to make literature commercially viable for its exponents.
An outgoing chairman of the panel of judges for the awards, Antonia Burrada, echoed the central bank governor's call to buy more locally produced literary works.
At this point in our development, it is important that we move beyond the politeness of lip service to fully appreciating and supporting our writers. When we speak about support, we are talking about purchasing the books which many writers self-publish at tremendous sacrifice and cost. It is particularly interesting to note that the Authors Guild of America, in a pamphlet entitled The Wages of Writing, Key Findings from a 2015 member survey, indicated that writing-related income of full-time authors dropped 30% since the 2009 survey, from 25,000 to 17,000.
There's regional and international news after this short break.
Barbados Today, news you can trust. Welcome back with news from the region now. As Barbados prepares to install its second female Governor General this afternoon, its Caribbean neighbor Trinidad and Tobago ends nominations today for its first female head of state. Minister of State Stuart Young said after a meeting between Prime Minister Keith Rowley and Opposition Leader Kamala Prasad-Bissessar that the government's nominee is a former acting Chief Justice.
This government's nominee for election to the President of Trinidad and Tobago is Madam Justice Paula May Weeks.
I would want to speak to my colleagues before I make a commitment. As I say, I'm not dismayed with respect to the name given to us, but I would not want to preempt a discussion.
He said Madam Justice Weeks, a former acting Chief Justice, is most willing to put herself forward as a presidential candidate.
The Electoral College of the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago will vote for the next president on January the 19th. On the international scene, a tanker carrying Iranian oil and run by the country's top oil shipping firm was ablaze and spewing cargo into the East China Sea on Sunday after colliding with a Chinese freight ship, leaving the tanker's 32 crew members missing.
An oil spill has hit the East China Sea, with 32 people missing after an oil tanker collided with a Chinese cargo ship. This footage is from the South Korean Coast Guard. The vessel, called the Sanchi, is a Panamanian ship carrying oil from Iran to South Korea, just under 1 million barrels, worth about $60 million. It's not immediately clear how big the spill is or the cause of the accident. The missing crew all came from the tanker. The Chinese vessel's crew is all accounted for and safe. This collision marks the first major maritime incident involving Iranian oil since the lifting of international sanctions in 2016. There was a crash involving a supertanker in the Singapore Strait that year, but there was no loss of life or pollution.
That's news, but for the very latest, visit our website at www.barbadostoday.bb. You can also subscribe to our e-paper, email updates, or even like us on Facebook. We are also on Izumi Media in bus terminals, as well as screenplay at supermarkets and gas stations near you. You can also hear us on Mix 96.9 FM. I'm Emmanuel Joseph. Have a fantastic day.